Ciao Roberta.
Ciao Tuukka, nice to see you again after
Likewise.
2 days, very, very intense in Lisbona.
Correct.
At the Web Summit, yes, because we met there for the first time after almost 1 year in talking through Zoom or Meet, and it was really great to know you there.
And that there was actually a real person.
Yeah.
It's also so real because the last time I actually saw you in person, and now I'm seeing you again behind
it's
the screen.
It's different to see now because
dream?
we have seen in person. So it's nice to be back to events and so on. And this is one what we want to do. So I hope that Daniel will join us here, and since he is in Milan. And let's come to us. So for those who doesn't know, but okay, Tuukka and I, we get in contact a few months ago because I was looking for a solution for implementing the idea of the hybrid hub. So in the idea of our hybrid hub of Gravity, there is on one side, the building up of a community, the physical hub, and so the idea to build up the community here, obviously connecting people as you do in Access Helsinki. But on the other side, in order to expand the community and to expand the chance to get in contact with people, experts, startups, projects, and so on, and also other hub and other ecosystem, because we are not alone in the space. So I find on the internet, just Googling, and your platform, as in say, and then we start talking about how to collaborate in Gravity project, and now we are here. So concerning collaboration, and especially coming to the idea that also Verena has spread before, the collaboration among the different stakeholders in the healthcare arena. You mentioned when we are in Lisbona of a project that maybe could be also an example. So apart from, first of all, present yourself and talk about Mesensei, then we can go through the some example that you're running and that are also the elements that are going to connect with us.
Absolutely.
So please.
Great. So thank you. My name is Tuukka, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mesensei. And as you do often in Finland, I also wear many hats. So I'm also part of the Access. I'm a board member in Access, and I'm also the lead coach and mentor. So briefly returning still back to the discussions you had previously with Daniel, I think it's important to emphasize that the collaboration we started with you is a result of us looking out actively to promote European collaboration, to think about the European startup journey where the hubs connect directly to each other rather than always thinking that everything goes through Silicon Valley or London. So what can we do together between Milan and Helsinki? And that was the initial discussion we had, and now working together with Gravity, it could be that also my own company, Mesensei, could potentially be relevant in Milan. And I really like the fact that you picked up the some of the use cases that we have for the healthcare sector and how those could be relevant. So I can share them with you and show what's that about. But is there, Robert, something other that should be put forward first before I show the case study and our company?
Okay.
Because what I can do is I can share a few slides if that helps to illustrate and share my screen. So
yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just briefly give an overview of what the company is about, what we do with Mesensei, and then I'll showcase some of the work we have done in the healthcare sector. Okay. Perfect. So let me see if this works out as intended. Do you see the mobile platform for high-value communities and ecosystems?
Slide. Thank you.
Yes. So Mesensei is a company which has been born out of platform economics research in Aalto University. In early as 2013, the researchers had come to the conclusion that there is very few platform success stories emerging from Europe. Most of the platform ecosystems and giants are being based either in United States or in China, and EU doesn't have as much services of its own, and eventually that needs to change because the European regulation and European way of doing things might diverge from the standards and legislations in China and United States. So then the challenge became that what could it be like? What could the European services look like, and how they should be built? And ours is one. So what we are building is a mobile platform for high-value communities and ecosystems which have a need for high compliance with data protection regulation and GDPR. So if we think about what is a high-value community, there is a lot of kind of online communities in online, especially on the American social media services. Most of them are driven by media and entertainment or marketing. We are not dealing with that space. We are dealing with high-value communities and ecosystem which contain either business-critical content or highly sensitive personal data. So our main customer use cases have come from academic world, academic incubations, acceleration programs, innovation ecosystems, which are professionally organized and are structured around role-based incentives. So our technology is being designed differently, and it's being driven by different types of use cases than what you would have in traditional social media. And especially the sensitive personal data is one of the core aspects to us. So what it's been designed for is that increasingly what we are seeing is that there is not just closed systems like individual organizations or enterprises or universities working themselves, but open systems, complex ecosystems where networks of networks connecting with multiple people coming and going with a porous structure rather than closely operated system. And in these use cases, it's what Recency has been designed for. One of the original ones was for an ecosystem which had multiple universities and different businesses, and they needed a collaboration platform which was safe and secure and move away the conversations from WhatsApp and LinkedIn into a platform where the data protection could be handled. So that's the origin of it. But if we go and have a look at the particular use cases, this is the one we have done for Central University Hospital here in Finland. Helsinki Central University Hospital ranks as number 21 on one of the world hospital rankings. So it's quite well known and reputable university hospital. And what our platform enables is them to have their own mobile application. So traditionally, if you think about platform, what you expect is to see the platform operated by its own brand, and where the brand controls the data and the legal framework. In our platform, that is reversed. So each of our customers have their own mobile applications published in the app stores under their own brand, and they are the data controllers. So this one is designed for doctors and doctoral training, where they are able to push certain bits of doctoral training into the pockets of the doctors on a themely based. The themes could be changed, but they are highlighting out of a big wealth of research and training material certain things that are most essentials, and bring those into the pockets of the doctors, meaning that doctors across the hospitals can then also discuss about them and seek for assistance. So at the moment, it's quite typical that the systems between the different hospitals are not shared among the professionals, and they must revert to use of WhatsApps or Facebooks or LinkedIn's and other public social media in order to exchange ideas and information. So the immediate use case is to improve the training, but also the secondary use case is to see that if the professional conversations could be moved into a secure and GDPR compliant system where the hospital is the data controller and can ensure the data protection in this case. So that's kind of like a typical use case. It's closed system, so I cannot show you what it looks like, unfortunately, but this one I could potentially show. It's close to the healthcare. This one is a Finnish NGO which supports breastfeeding, the women and families who have young babies who are in the nursing phase, and they support on that one. So they had previously a call line, a traditional phone call line, where the hours of availability were limited due to lack of trained professionals and due to the operational challenges of running a call center. But we helped them to digitally transform the helpline by introducing a mobile application, which combines both the helpline and the chat on a single mobile application, and it enabled them to tap into the volunteer force of their community. So instead of few trained people in the call center, which became problematic during the COVID time, they now have over 90 volunteer supporters who are online, ready to assist the people 24/7. That's a complete digital transformation of an NGO from Facebooks and WhatsApp groups and traditional call line to a single centralized mobile application with all the functions in the secure environment where they are the data controllers and processors. So these are two use cases, and whatever is piquing your interest, I would be happy to tell more. Roberta, any questions?
Well, you know that this was the basis on what we start talking. So basically, you enable a very strong collaboration, and there are also some other use case that you mentioned to me. But now we talked during Web Summit about the also apart the idea that we are carrying on collaborating. So not only the adoption of Mesensei and the evolution of Mesensei that we are going to provide together, but also starting, the idea is to start working together also for the healthcare sector. And you mentioned to me a project that you are carrying on the patient journey, so on management of some aspect of the patient journey. Can you tell us and tell something about this experience? Could be interesting. Thank you.
So it's still an initiative, so it doesn't have a shape or form yet, but we have identified a need to support the patient journey here in Finland outside of the kind of like the formal structures. So for example, young patients with cancer, they have very effective patient path which connects them digitally already with the hospital, and that patient path is governed and structured and operated obviously by the hospital, and that is the formal support. But if we think about young survivor or sufferers from cancer disease, it's not just the treatment that is essential for the well-being of the patient. It is also everything else. So if you are discharged from the hospital, you have a lot of questions, and there is a lot of things that you need to work out in your life. Applying for support, filling out forms, preparing for things. If you are only capable of doing part-time work, where do you get the support? All these things, and there is a lot of different NGOs that are capable of helping and supporting that journey. However, all those services are fragmented and siloed, so there is not kind of like an horizontal support path that would be coordinated. And one way to approach that would be to build an ecosystem of these different services and put them in a single mobile application, easily accessible and usable by a person who is not going through individual verticals, but more crossing lots of different verticals on their personal path, which is horizontal. And achieving these type of services is actually extraordinarily difficult, because most of the structures are in silos and verticals, and then bridging that horizontally using different types of digital tools and methods requires a lot of collaboration between the different partners. And previously there hasn't been so much interest or even organizational capability or even ways of doing this kind of collaboration. But the times are changing, and especially the user-centric view, the the service design thinking, the changes in society is placing more and more interest in these type of services, and contrasting it with what we have been talking together with you, it certainly would be applicable as a conceptual thinking to think about what other paths there could be and how this could be applied to, let's say, in Milan and in setting in Italy.
Yes, thank you. Yes, is a very good starting point. That's also because we are making both experience in different ecosystem, also healthcare ecosystem. And in your opinion, how is the environment in Finland? So the public health system or the private sector, how is reacting? In this evolutionary scenario, and not only obviously with your application, but but also in your idea, how is evolving the healthcare sector there in Finland?
This is a
it's a tricky question.
Am I being recorded? Yes, I am. So I'll put my tongue very carefully on here. No, I've been 20 years in the digital industry. I've seen it to kind of like to shape up and to emerge and go through different kind of phases. We are in a new phase now, and I think this has been the case for 2 years, maybe about. The introduction of the GDPR was a system shock. It was designed as such, and it did have that impact. Before GDPR, I would have kind of said that there's a snowball's chance in hell for small businesses to engage with big institutions and try to be credible. Simply would not have happened. That the American dominance over the IT systems and ways of doing and thinking would have been absolutely impenetrable before. But post GDPR, if you look at the ways the service architectures are being built by most of the companies, they haven't sort of understood that there is actually a real demand for European solutions. And our case is a living proof that by building a good service and by building it based on the specification for the European digital single market area, there's very little competition. I mean, we won the bids in these institutions because we were able to project what they wanted to see in terms of data protection and compliance processes. So to me, that's astonishing that it's actually happening. And yet it is obvious that it must happen. We have our own ways of doing things, and it kind of dictates that if a market area has a differentiating regulation, it means that the business drivers will be eventually different. So would be the technology, and so would essentially be also the solutions. So what is winning solution in the American market or Chinese market might be incompatible with the realities of EU market, which means that there needs to be demand for more European-centered services, which means that European companies, startups, SMEs, and others need to build them. That's where I see it. So I think at this time it's super exciting that there is an opening for European startups to collaborate with big institutions on this kind of level that, well, you know, we do because we must. But at the same time, I think it's also the societal change. It's a new generation that is stepping up to positions of decision-making power, and they want to see different types of services. The siloed thinking is getting outdated. And I think I see genuine willingness even in large institutions to digitally transform the services from production-centric view to more like the user-centric view to increase the service level, because that also equals to efficiency in many cases. And where we are in the moment is that we simply must do more with less resources, and that requires new thinking, and that's another opening. So I see these two things converging at the same time, meaning that I think the opportunities for European innovation is as good as it has ever been.
Yes, I think you're right, and I think that the idea for Europe to protect more and more it's not only a protection and privacy, it is a new instrument within. I think that's something that is not very clear usually, is that not only protection and privacy, this is a new instrument in the hands of people. So it is a way to be an active part of their data, of their data protection. So it's not only my data are protected, but it's also what I can do with them. So I can also decide to share, to participate to initiative, giving my data away for free or also with a monetization. So I think the idea that is not really maybe underlined in the GDPR initiative in Europe is that is give, as you say, the chance to come back to a new European approach to technology and not the colonization only of foreign platform and technologies. Is not closing the market, okay, it's not that, but is an idea to stimulate more and more a vision within our continent about the what we can do and what we can develop. And also I agree with you, is the strength and opportunity, is a huge opportunity of open up to collaboration and to also a way, a sort of a European style in managing this kind of information, in managing the relationship among people, among institution and people, among companies and institution and people. So also coming to the 5P of Verena, maybe also this is another layer on which we can rely. So it's technology and with a human touch.
Yeah. Maybe if as a closing argument, this is something that I always try to bring to the young entrepreneurs, that the world isn't finished. The digitalization didn't start and end. If we compare digitalization to industrial revolution, think of what the industrial revolution looked like in 1780. What kind of factories, what kind of engines we had in 1780 or 90. What did they look like in 1860 and what do they look like in 1960? So if we think that we are 20 years to the digital revolution, we are still building the first steam engines. We are still building the first sort of like factories that are potentially polluting and deadly and getting all things kind of like really horribly wrong. And anybody who would have introduced a regulation on a factory piping in 1800 would be hearing from the industrialists saying that cannot be done. And if we cannot use child labor and if we cannot dump the toxics into the lake, we cannot be in the business. And yet we are. It's every single phase of a new technology faces the similar sort of like challenges. And I think that I want to put into perspective that Facebook didn't win the internet. It's not game over for everybody else. It's the first phase of the digitalization and to be dominated by certain players, but the companies that existed 150 years ago in the Industrial Revolution are not necessarily here anymore. So that's the game we are in.
Yes, coming to your idea and what you said about the Industrial Revolution, just a few years ago, it was impossible to think about how to manage, for example, pollution differently. But it's also a way, if we start, apart the fact that there is really a need and an urgence about this kind of issue, obviously. But I think these are opportunities and a way to free from slavery also many people and to work differently. And innovation must bring this kind of values. So it's not just releasing new technologies, new ideas, but it's making an impact on societies, making an impact and give the idea. So it's exporting a European or a democracy model, but not based on wars, but based on inclusion, based on give the chance to people. You know that some ways, for example, in Africa or other countries, some technologies are more advanced compared to Europe, because there is an urgency and a need to use, for example, mobile phones or so on. So
correct.
We have to manage and to address each needs and respect the not only the environment, but also people's needs and include people within the innovation process. That is the idea that we are bringing on in healthcare, but not only there. So in technology, especially since you're an expert in technologies, and you know that at least technologies can provide us an help and are a layer to processes, to ideas. So that's the idea that we can carry on.
That's well said. I like that view, and I've never been favorite of techno-deterministic view that whatever we have now is given, and that is from here to eternity. We always make choices. We always make choices that what we want to use, and people are shifting. They might like the shiny fun new toy, but when they realize that okay, it might have these problems, they might choose differently when new alternatives emerge. But it's an interplay between the markets, the users, the people, the technologies to create new waves and contrasted and compared to the speed of industrial revolution. I think with the digital revolution that can happen much faster because it's
I think that what we have said what we have seen at Web Summit is going back to the roots. Is also many conferences were not just talking about investment and how to create a big value for few, but is coming back to the idea that digital technologies and the digital revolution can help the world. So people and to express themselves and give better services, a better life. So this, I think, is what we see and hear the most in Lisbon in Web Summit. So
I agree. And the idea that we can build the things that we need closer to home. We don't have to rely on huge corporates outside. And to just sort of
create a more democratic environment in which big companies and small companies can cooperate, creating values and also with a benefit from people. So including an inclusive way of technology.
Co-creation. That's how we have created all of our technology. We haven't sort of like sat in a research chamber figuring out what it could be that people want, but we have been sitting with real people with real need, working away their challenges one by one to create designs and services that are being used and co-created with the people who need them. And that's the way I love building technology and services.
Thank you very much, Tuukka, for these thoughts, and also because these thoughts are also at the basis of our collaboration. So if we have found the pleasure to become friends, and it's that we rely on the same value setting.
That's why I like the G-gravity, because it generates gravity. Certain things gravitate towards each other. So that's
accelerate, because gravity is something that could accelerate you through the universe, but it's also something that can
pulls you together. Yeah.
And yes,
I like it. I like it.
Okay. So Tuukka, thank you very much for your speech, and having the pleasure as usual to talk with you. So let's get back soon and hope to see Daniel instead here, because he's
unfortunately this time over I can't make the aperitif. Would have loved to sample
some. See you
but
here.
I'll be coming to Milan probably early next year, so we'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.